right. Nation building, peaceful coexistence is a process, not a destination. And it means that it requires agreeable implementation for parties involved to abide by. And just like Ronald Reagan buttressed in his words, peace is not the absence of conflict, but the ability to handle conflicts by peaceful means. End of quote. Invariably, in the absence of this agreement, that's the peaceful agreement, chaos ensues, and of course, conflict become inevitable.
Absolutely clear. And you know, a nation without peace is a nation headed for chaos, just like I said, and absolutely. A clear example is data from the International Center for Investigative Reporting indicating that between January and October 2023, thousands of people were killed in violent attacks and conflicts across the country. Although these figures might be in contention for uncertain, but more than ever before, the harsh reality of our situation underscores the issues of conflict in Nigeria, which has become endemic, particularly farmers-herders clashes.
All right, that's quite sad. And the issue of farmer-herders clashes in Nigeria, which was before now seen as a regional conflict, is taken another dimension, and many people are raising eyebrows, and of course reactions from different quarters. Now, the heated or confined conflict has reportedly gone beyond the borders of many West African countries.
Indeed, and very true, Claire. It is a struggle of supremacy, people say, between herders and farmers in Nigeria over farmland and pasture. The issue is regarded by some analysts as a serious and escalating conflict, registering huge casualties and raising tensions. Some believe the conflict has been fueled by environmental challenges, climate change, cultural differences and resources, and also political polarization.
Absolutely, and for many years, drought, desertification, particularly in the north, have forced many pastoralist herdsmen to, seek grazing lands further south. And that is also resulting in competition over resources. Of course, I should add limited resources and clashes with settled farmers. Unfortunately, the impact is felt significantly with loss of lives, livelihoods, food insecurity, proliferation of small arms and light weapons, displacement of vulnerable groups. Most especially, women and children are mostly impacted,
yes,
by all of the
They bear the brunt of conflicts.
In
a conflict situation, the women and children are in more danger because they are vulnerable.
Yes.
And just last year, the House of Representatives had an interactive session on the recurrent annual clashes with incidents across some parts of the country. And the resolve was to take a critical look at the causes, nature, dimensions, actors, and of course, impacts.
All right, let's also fast forward to July this year. Of course, that's a few days ago. And action, they say, speak louder than words. And that is the fact that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is not just taking of course, will not take any more chances as he inaugurated a presidential Committee on Implementation of Livestock Reforms to address obstacles to agricultural productivity and, of course, open up new opportunities for farmers and herders and distributors in the livestock farming value chain. And Jume, if you recall, last year there was a national conference on livestock, which was held here in Abuja. It was at the instance of the former Kano State Governor, Ganduje, and that was the beginning of this new initiative taken by President Ahmed Tinubu, and that conference specifically came up with reports on what to do, not just to expand or to give viability to this livestock industry, but also to address other security measures.
That was after, so many brouhaha about the Ruga, settlement and all that. And He named the Renewed Hope Livestock Reform Implementation Committee. It is now chaired by President himself and co-chaired by Professor Atairu Jeka. Remember him, former INEC president. President Tinubu had also pronounced the creation of a ministry to be known as Federal Ministry of Livestock Development. Now, what are the expected reforms in the livestock development? What should be the model operandi for the committee to avoid rhetorics and put its best foot forward in promoting agricultural productivity and enhancing livestock development?
You know, in the academics, when we talk about peace and conflict, you know, some people will tell you that man is naturally conflictual, which means that, you know, his whole being is driven by conflict.
Conflicts, yes.
But of course, there is the other school of thought that will tell you that no, man is not naturally altogether conflictual. There is the other side of man, you know, which
loves peace. So, yeah.
Yes. So if you give man a chance, you know, he's capable of rational thought, and that's what, you know, we should be looking at. Man is capable, you know, of rational thought. So man is capable of addressing those things that drive conflict. And indeed, there are so many other questions, you know, obvious questions, and at the same time, palpable excitement of what has, you know, been thrown up to us. But with the introduction of the Ministry of Livestock Development, it brings the total number of ministries to 47. Mind you, it hasn't come on board yet.
Yes.
President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has said, okay, you know, this reform, the report of the reform, you know, is recommending creation of this ministry.
Yes, yeah, you know, from conversations across the country, this is the first time an initiative like this is wholeheartedly, you know, accepted by everybody. The Ruga controversy was there, and so many things, but I believe Nigerians now understand that these farmer-herder clashes should come to an end.
Everyone wanted to come to an end. Or everyone wanted, and like President Bola Ahmed Tinubu said, I mean, with the caliber of people and with the vast opportunities we have, we don't have any reason, you know, to have all the conflicts. You know, so we are hoping that the reports, you know, will be implementable. The framework will be drawn, and then a lot of stakeholders, you know, that are supposed to be part of the implementation will key into it, and the bureaucratic bottlenecks that normally, you know, I mean, impede implementation of this kind of initiative must be looked at. And indeed, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu had given directive to all the ministers and ministers involved. Anyway, this is our focus this morning on Good Morning Nigeria. We will be talking very, very deeply, you know, about the reforms in this sector. Not just the ministry, but the reforms and what can be done and how it can be implemented. On this note, I gladly welcome you to the program. I am Claire Adelabu Abdurrazak, and it's been a while. I'm presenting with my sister today.
Yeah,
good to see you.
It's been a while. That's why I'm so relaxed, you know. And I'm Jumo Yusuf. We're transmitting live on the network service of the NTA here in Abuja. And in the course of the program, as usual, we have our newspaper review. But for now, let's take the highlights of the morning news with Dennis Adegunle. Good morning, Dennis.
Good morning, Jume and Claire. Good morning, Nigeria. The administration of President Bola Tinubu is demonstrating commitment towards checking corruption and related matters in the public procurement processes with the setting up of a committee to review the Public Procurement Act. The decision from Wednesday's meeting of the Federal Executive Council is to give expression to the stand of the administration in ensuring probity, proficiency and diligence in the execution of federal projects.
The position of Council on Procurement Act is that it is long overdue for amendment. The last time it was touched was in 2007, and because of the changing dynamics, it is important that we bring these act, the content of the act, to be in tandem with the happenings in the society.
All the projects that we said will be stepped down does not mean that they are going to be thrown away. What council decision is that we'll bring them all, look at them again. Now the Minister of Budget, Minister of Finance, the Minister of Works will sit down and look at the projects again and reprioritize.
22 new judicial officers have been added to the bench of the Court of Appeal. Administering the oath of office on the new appellate court justices, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Olukayode Ariwola, advised the judicial officers to dispense justice without fear or favor.
Today's ceremony is an indication of the perilous times that we are currently in, which has resulted in an upsurge in litigation. Several unfathomable crimes are being committed in this country, aside from the usual political matters that have made litigations to go on alarming rise.
And ahead of the planned population and housing census in Nigeria, the federal government has inaugurated a Census National Security and Logistics Committee to drive a hitch-free exercise. National Security Advisor Nuhu Ribadu, who is chairing the committee, assures of a safe environment for the headcount.
It is in the light of this and the desire to bequeath an enduring legacy of evidence-based planning for sustainable development that the conduct of the nation's population and housing census is of topmost priority to the administration of His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
The Director General of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, Brigadier General Buba Marwa, says there is no hiding place for illicit drug traffickers in Nigeria, as the agency has created 5 new strategic commands with body cameras for operational efficiency. The NDLEA boss stated this at a meeting with commanders of the agency in Abuja.
Diligence to maintain its integrity. We owe the public a duty to not betray the trust reposed in us. We cannot rest on our oars until all the objectives of our mandate are fully achieved.
Well, those are the news highlights for now. Good morning. Nigeria continues after this break with Claire and Jume. Good morning.
The federal government of Nigeria wants vandals of national assets, electricity transmission towers, cables and other facilities to desist from this act of sabotage. Vandalism is a serious crime punishable under the law. Vandalizing electrical equipment will affect millions of Nigerians, including your loved ones. Remember that national assets belong to all of us, hence the need to protect them. Report all cases of suspicious movement around electrical facilities to security agencies. When you see something, say something. This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation in collaboration with the National Counter-Terrorism Center, NCTC, Office of the National Security Advisor.
The new Milo 3-in-1 Milky and Creamy is truly milky and contains calcium. No need to add milk for that rich, creamy cup, which helps to nourish and energize your kids. Milo!
Did you know that 1/4 of the world's deaths from malaria is in Nigeria? And the reason being a mosquito that spreads malaria, a disease that puts everyone's life in distress. We believe that protection and prevention is the best cure in the fight to end malaria. Mortein insecticide with its improved formulation kills 100% mosquitoes that spread malaria. So, spread the message of how we can fight to end malaria with Mortein. Mortein, our #1 choice.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
You have to move from the point where you protect and defend your religion to a point where you also recognize the rights of the other person, of the other religion, and protect it. So if I am protecting my own territory and my own people and trying to emphasize their rights and protect their rights, I should also be thinking about how to protect the rights of the others.
Both Islam and Christianity recognize and defer to God, and both recognize the temporariness of the life of this world, and that ultimately we all go back to God for the day of reckoning, when everybody will render an account of his life on this temporary abode.
From the Atlantic across the savannah to the Sahara, we rise, a land of the free, we know they tire. We dream great, our spirit is undying.
Resilient, rooted like palm tree, we sway in colors, with undying demand. We make solutions, we ignite passion, yeah. Each ethnicity is unique, we are more than just a nation. We are Nigeria, strengthening unity, we know they carry lives. We are Nigeria, together live the dream of a land with great destiny. We are Nigeria.
I am the real Nigerian. Brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
All right, welcome back. If you just joined in, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria live on the network series. Up next is newspaper review.
And our newspaper reviewer, Chukudi Okolo Baja, is seated here. Chukudi, is a wet morning today. Beautiful weather.
But I'm happy and excited, as you observed.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a good day. Yeah. Remember what we always say, a good dose of optimism sees you through. Hello, Claire.
Hello, Chukudi.
You like the positivism we are dropping this morning? It moves live.
Okay, let's quickly begin with the papers this morning, and I'm starting with the Sun newspaper. The Sun newspaper, and just beside the masthead, herdsmen kill 13, burn houses in Benue community. Find the details on page 4. Minimum wage. Ahead of meeting with FG, Labour insists on 250,000 naira. Find the details on page 6. Reps Minister trade words over 1.5 billion contractors fund. Find it on page 26. Insecurity. Tinubu trapped, caged by powerful forces in the villa. That's coming from Mohammed Ndume. Details on page 27. I will rather resign than rule on bended knees. Is attributed to the River State Governor, Fubara, insists Amole-led lawmakers' seats were declared vacant December 13. Details on page 8. Tension in Abga, Anambra, as INEC recognizes Edozie Njoku's-led EXCO. Details on page 26. NDDC presents 1.9 trillion budget estimates to reps, strategizes for regions' growth. Details on page 26. Tinubu directs step down of works memos, orders review. With rider, FEC sets up committee to review Public Procurement Act. And details on page 6. FG governors no fate on local government autonomy as Supreme Court delivers verdict today. Details on page 6. Our judicial system now mockery. CGN laments. Let's quickly go to the Blueprint newspaper. They will have busy front pages today. And above the Blueprint, above the masthead, reps canvass 1% first line charge for TB malaria control. You find details on page 6. With current strategic measures, food prices will crash in 180 days. That's coming from the federal government, and the assurance of high-quality grains importation. Details on page 4. Tinubu meets NLC TUC leaders over minimum wage today. Find all the details in the paper. And ahead, Edo Ondo polls, Areola warns against conflicting judgments, with riders says Nigeria in perilous times over litigation upcharge. Swears in 22 appeal court judges, 12 in FCT High Court. At the bottom plate of the blueprint, Supreme Court to deliver judgment on local government autonomy. US aid to inject 115 billion naira into Nigeria's power sector. Find the details on page 20. NDLEA promotes 5,042 officers, confers 70 with special awards. I think that's about what we have.
Okay, Jimmy, thank you. You've read out most of the stories I
Yeah.
have. But the Vanguard has as its lead story, will regulate price of imported foodstuffs. That's government, and it comes with some metrics there, or riders, if you may. And just again to emphasize the story that Jume just read out, conflicting court orders, CJN vows to deal with errant judges, and this paper actually noted two very prominent situations. Recent conflicting orders of courts of concurrent jurisdiction include the Kano Emirship tussle. A state high court and the federal high court gave conflicting orders. And then the River State crisis, two federal high courts in Abuja issued conflicting orders and political crisis in the state. I think this is very good, emphasizing the two instances there. And UBEC is saying that Nigeria needs almost 200,000 more teachers and 1.1 million classrooms. That story is on page 9. And end SARS protest, ECOWAS court finds federal government guilty of rights violations. And that story is on page 4. Minimum wage, Tinubu meets organized labor today. And I will round off a Vanguard newspaper after Chukwudi's review with Mr. and Mrs. Quite interesting one there. But Chuks, I don't know. Let's start with probably the federal government resolve to regulate price of imported foodstuffs. And I'm wondering, do we still have price control boards? In those days, it would have been easier to do that. But in a situation where prices are determined by market forces, how easy will it be to do this? And it says that it expects that the prices should crash in 180 days.
I was listening to a clip, where the former Edo State Governor, now Senator, that's Adam Soshomole, was saying, how liberal can you actually make your economy and all that? Sometimes government needs to come down on certain things. Some regulation is needed. And I found it a very interesting subject. The PCB, the Price Control Board, boards were quite relevant, in determining some level of stability in the prices of things out there in the marketplace. But now that they are not in place, the interesting question you want to ask as a journalist, we tell you the cup is half empty of water because we pry. You need to tell us how you want to do it. What are the mechanisms? What are those? What is the setup that will help us to regulate the price, the prices of this?
Yes, I'm trying to read if there is.
What is it? They need to come out with the plan, how it's going to work.
Precisely.
Because so many things get so demonized and then abused in this country because supervision is largely lacking in key areas.
Listen to this.
Yes.
To me. The minister, of course, the story is on the inside page. The minister, apparently referring to the Minister of of Agriculture, Food and Security, that's Abubakar Kyari, says the minister also explained that over the next 14 days, the Presidential Food Systems Coordinating Unit and the Economic Management Team will, in collaboration, meet with respective agencies to finalize implementation framework for the new policy of making food cheaply available for Nigerians. The new policy will be the removal of duties and tariffs.
Yeah,
and tariffs for 180 days.
For
150.
150 days. 150 days, yes.
For 150 days. So
then
probably
we expect that the prices will crash in 180 days. You bought rice for about 70,000 naira. That's the big bull thing.
I'm not a rice person.
That's about
actually.
three weeks ago or 1 month ago, to be a bit liberal. Today is 85,000 naira.
Yeah.
That meteoric rise is not explainable in economic terms, you know. So what are Kingsley Sadona would always call the vampire market cartels? Those are the people I'm saying. How are we going to control them? How? It's a good thing. Government has very good intentions. The first order of government is to provide welfare for the people.
Chukwudi, we have quite a number of stories we will
Yes.
review. But let's quickly look at another clause, Jume, in this story. And this is coming from Senator Ali Ndume, representing Borno South. And he was speaking, according to this paper, on BBC Hausa service yesterday. He said the biggest problem is that they can't see president to advise him on food prices. And he said, let me read out here. He said, the biggest problem confronting members of the National Assembly is the alleged closed-door policy of government, where even some members of Tinubu's cabinet cannot see the president, let alone lawmakers who intend to see him and discuss issues pertaining to their constituency.
There's nothing wrong in a lawmaker, a senator for that matter, insisting that
having
they
access,
see the
yes.
president.
Yeah.
But the Senate meets either in plenary or in committees. And those are the platforms for you to actually transmit anything that can hold it, you know.
Yes.
So sometimes the meeting is talking about may not be completely necessary. Please, I'm not disrespecting Senator Ali, not at all.
Yeah.
So the president has other things to do as well, but I'm not one of his aides, so let me stop there.
Yes,
so
but-
we stop there. And one other good thing is today the president is meeting the NLC, TUC, you know, leaders over the minimum wage, and I hope something positive comes out of it.
I pray that some...
Because Nigerians have been
I pray that
patiently waiting.
Something will happen to make them meet each other halfway.
Halfway, yes.
Yeah. If the NLC is still saying, NLC, TUC are still saying it's going to be 250 and nothing short, I still see brickbats in the days ahead. Let them agree on something.
There will be agreement,
So that we
because
don't
I
die
think
of hunger before they come to our rescue.
another
You know,
quick-
landlords are already, you know, the rent is just going up with an expectation of the rise in salaries and the wages for Nigerian workers. So, yes, they are preempting it already, and it's not easy. Yes.
Chukwudi, I'm sorry. We are asked to round off, but it will not be. I think it will be good for us to quickly, if we can just take 60 seconds, to talk about the ECOWAS court finding federal government guilty of rights, and it is ordering the federal government to pay each of the applicants the sum of 2 million as compensation. Additionally, it is also saying that the federal government must adhere to its obligations under the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, that's the ACPHR, by investigating and prosecuting its agents responsible for the violations. And the federal government has 6 months to report to it measures that it has put in place to implement
The first thing to say is the fatalities people were announcing and all that, some of it came to the regional fallacy. But what the ECOWAS court is saying is that free assembly, protest is still very much something that a democratic government must protect. Those young people were not seen to have been breaking things, and suddenly we broke it up. So they are saying their rights have to be ensured. And that is something that Africa, not just Nigeria, has to pay heed to. Yes.
All right. Chukwudi, let me have the pleasure of allowing you to take your leave while we get on with the business.
There's a seeming tendency to stop kicking you out of this.
No. We won't do that.
We can't kick you out.
You are very relevant to this show. Chukwudi, have a pleasant day. Go and tuck yourself under the duvet. It's raining. All right. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back.
You think you're in club? Remove your glass. You cannot wear your sunglasses on here. Mention something a Nigerian would ask for when buying suya. Rice. It's hard. I know all these beautiful women, guys. It's hard. This job is not allowing me to be free of my step, to just tease and back to being the host. Are you in a current relationship now?
No.
No. Yamisi is just a friend.
Yes.
You're single.
Yes.
He's single. Maybe they can mingle. Survey says.
Meet lovebirds Jayola and Adama Davies. Their dream of living together as man and wife has finally been fulfilled.
The latest couple in town. Mr. and Mrs. Jaye Davis!
But an invasion by their troublesome families was not a scenario they bargained for. Her mother moves in. His mother shows up with his little niece. Then her younger sister joins the scramble.
You want to stay?
Married life suddenly becomes very complicated even before it started. Follow their story on this channel as they confront every challenge as it comes. Family Forever, the story of our lives.
We must all join hands to work hard so that we build a country for our grandchildren.
My hope is that we develop as a nation where every citizen is given his due right. There is transparency, honesty, and integrity.
Put the interests of this country first and foremost. Interests of Nigeria is being one nation, one people.
The need, if I mean, to put things right, things that have gone wrong before, to try and put right. For this, for the love of country.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Euro 2024, live on Sporty TV.
All right. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us on Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service of the NTA. It's time to get on with our business for today. We're looking at the livestock reforms and, of course, way forward. But before we commence our conversation, let's quickly listen to the background report, and it's put together by our correspondent, Garba Natala.
Livestock farming in many developed countries is significant and contributes immensely to satisfying the demands of consumption, such as meat, eggs, milk, fur, leather, and wool. More than 248 million heads of stock chicken, live goats put at 88 million heads, and the sheep stock reportedly adding up to 50.3 million heads, indicating a huge proportion of animals in the country. Nigeria's agricultural landscape predominantly reflects a common practice of people's livelihood and serves as a source of food and employment for billions of rural and urban households. More so, the agribusiness in Nigeria is a lucrative one, so appealing that the variety of options offers many opportunities for people to engage in such business. Considering the key subsectors of the livestock industry, President Bola Tinubu inaugurated a committee on the implementation of livestock reforms to address obstacles to agricultural productivity with the support of stakeholders drawn from the public and private sectors and the state governors. The president envisions new frontiers for farmers, herders, processors, and distributors in the livestock farming value chain to further explore the potential in the area of poultry, dairy, cattle, and fishery, among others. For Nigeria's growth and prosperity, the removal of all legal obstacles is needed for the implementation of the reforms, and the establishment of Ministry of Livestock Development is an added boost. For performance, providing modern technology, creating a budget for it, and rolling out other incentives to enable Nigeria to take advantage of livestock farming is key. With this reform, it is believed economic prosperity is guaranteed, giving prominence to livestock. But how can the issue of farmer-herders clashes be resolved? How can it boost livestock production? How can environmental degradation be tackled? And can states secure funding for such reform? Is there a commitment to encourage ranching? Is insecurity still hindering progress in states? These issues and more will be discussed by guests on the program.
Thank you, Garba Nata'ala. And already we have our guests seated in the studio. And we begin with Professor Muhammad Yahya Kuta. He's the Secretary, Presidential Livestock Reforms Implementation Committee. You're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
It's a pleasure to be with you. Good morning, Nigeria.
We have Professor Lorufemi Jegede. He's coming from the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine, University of Abuja. It's a pleasure to have you join us.
Thank you.
And we also have somebody I've been following on the social media for quite a while, Aminu Murtala Inyako. He's Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Sebore International Farms in Adamawa State. It's a pleasure to finally meet you.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Yes.
All right. Jumei has met. Anyway, let me raise up my comment.
From my full brother.
Sorry?
My full brother.
You know? All right. We have two other guests joining us via Zoom. One is from Kaduna, and that's Dr. Saleh Momale, Executive Vice Chairman, Peace Commission. Dr. Momale, are you there? Oh, yeah. Thank you very much for joining us again.
Good morning, and good morning, Nigerians.
And we have the pleasure also of joining us all the way from London, Senator representing Plateau South Federal Constituency, former chairman, Northern Governors Forum, and of course, former speaker, governor of Plateau State, Right Honorable Simon Bako Lalong. Your Excellency, distinguished Senator, thank you very much for joining us on this program.
Yes, good morning, viewers. Thank you very much for having me, Claire and Jumai.
Okay, let's start with the secretary, who is the Presidential Livestock Reforms Implementation Committee, and I mean it's necessary we start with you. We would like you to actually, let's identify for us the major issues really in this livestock industry that require, reforms.
Thank you very much. First and foremost, on behalf of the chairman of the committee on livestock reforms implementation, just inaugurated barely 72 hours ago by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Professor Tairu Jega. He would have been here himself, but he has mandated me and other of my colleagues in the committee, Professor Olurfemi Jegede, Mr. Aminu Murtala Inyako, and Dr. Saleh Momale to join Good Morning Nigeria today to appreciate President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for this historic moment in the history of Nigeria, to have made a bold statement and take a bold step to find lasting solution to what I call protracted problem that has bedeviled our agricultural system, particularly animal agriculture. And the breaking news is that Mr. President has finally created a Ministry of Livestock Development, which has been well received across the globe, because the kind of information that has reached all of us has been commendations, commendations, and commendations. So we thank Mr. President for this wonderful opportunity to make a difference. Hitherto, Mr. President in 2018 attempted to resolve this livestock crisis, especially herders-farmers conflict, and he tried his best until in 2023, February 13 and 14 precisely, the former governor of Kano State and the current chairman of APC, Dr. Abdullahi Umar Ganduje, organized a conference where a majority of us participated, and it provided a springboard for what is happening today, because at that conference, interestingly, it was also chaired by Professor Atairu Jega and people from all over the country, experts in veterinary medicine, experts in animal science, experts in extension, sociology, conflict resolution, and all professionals assembled in Abuja and insisted that that conference will be the last of its kind, that no more conference, but solution should be sought finally. And on September 14, when President Bola Ahmed Tinubu assumed office, the chairman and the convener of the committee led us to the presidential villa to present the report to Mr. President. And behold, Mr. President, upon receiving that report, was excited and said to us, and I quote him verbatim, he said, "In every adversity, there is an opportunity. So today, the solution is here." And he's going to constitute an implementation committee that will implement the recommendations in that report. And that report was...
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you.
Yes.
So that we can gain time, because we have quite a number of people. We know the antecedents, from 2023 when, the conference was held. And that conference was to, streamline, what the issues in the livestock industry, are. And I've just asked, if you may, just give us an idea, an insight into what are the major issues bedeviling that sector that conference, addressed, for which, we are seeking reforms.
Yes. Primarily, the issue of herders-farmers conflict was at the front burner. And part of the solutions were that there is a need to pay attention to the issue of livestock, because we have not maximized our potentials as a nation. In other climes, smaller countries like Benin Republic, Burkina Faso, that have Ministry of Livestock Development, have a GDP contribution of 55%, 40%, and 45% and 50% in some instances. In Nigeria, the contribution was abysmal, has been abysmal, less than 10%, in spite of our potential in terms of landmass, in terms of population of livestock. And when we talk about livestock, it's not all about cattle, it's all about all animals that are domesticated for economic gain. And the advantage here is that we need to explore the economic potential of the sector so that we will address the entire value chain instead of just picking some point of it and it's all embracing. So we have been able to look at all the issues in that perspective, and Mr. President has charged this committee to fast track the implementation. And it has started with the establishment because the conference recommended that part of the solution is to have a Ministry of Livestock Development to pay attention to all the issues of livestock development in our country. And it has started, and that with this now, we are to look at the operational issues and all the issues that will ensure that we maximize our potential economically and socially, address some of the latent issues that have caused conflict among diverse interests.
So,
in the livestock sector.
fundamentally, the issue is to address the security issues.
That's right.
You know,
Exactly.
okay.
You continue to talk about that when we return, but we now have to link up with Senator Olalong, who is joining us via Zoom from London. And Senator, you know, you're an advocate of ranching. You've always said that ranching is the best option for Plateau State. And, you know, one of the states worst hit by heather farmers clashes is Plateau State. And what is your take on this new ministry and, you know, the process the president is going to ensure that we quell the tension that is there in the North Central especially? And can you tell us how this report will be implemented in your area as a senator, actually?
Thank you very much, Jumai. And let me also thank very much Mr. President for this idea, for this novel idea. For over 30 years, I would say more than 20 years, because from the 8 years that I was a governor, we were faced with these challenges. And every time, even moving to the governor, chairman of Governors Forum, I can see a lot of resource persons who have been very, very active on this. Professor Kuta was part of it, Mr. Momale, and then the representative of former Governor Nyako. Nyako, I must say, commend him. First, put me for 2 hours and told me, you must find a lasting solution to this problem. And that was when I became governor. So for me, I think the president has taken the bull by the horn. I've heard some people say that it will be duplication. What is duplication? We have been on this same issue using the same method and achieving nothing. Today, there is a movement or foundation for the creation of a ministry. Now it will implementation. I will say that a lot of it was done like that. That was the idea that came up with the livestock production program. But it failed because of what sentiments? A lot of sentiments. People are now moving religion. People became so strong and destroyed the whole concept. But for me, when I saw Professor Jega, when I saw the team, I said, yes, I have a lot of respect for Professor Jega because I know his level of commitment when it comes to issues like this. So we need a separate ministry with separate resource persons. All of them are here. All of them, I know their capacity. It is now moving, drawing the publicity aspect of it. Let people not put religion into it. Let people not put ethnicity into it. It is a very life, it's a venture that will take us away from the farmers herdsmen predicament that we are facing, not only in the north now, all over the country. So if we have this aspect, today we are faced with food shortage, now crying of hunger because of insecurity. People cannot no longer go to their farms. And when they say, look at these are solutions, let us use these solutions to address it. You see infiltration of religion and ethnic issues that will destroy a very beautiful concept. So that was why I started with commending Mr. President for taking this action, and also the kind of people that he's putting. So the implementation, I've not read through the documents, I won't claim that I've read all, but when I saw them and I said this would be the same people, so that now that there's a ministry separated from the Ministry of Agriculture. When we started the concept, how did it die? From Ministry of Agriculture in implementation. A concept that was supposed to be implemented well under the former vice president was turned into an issue, and then Just the mention of Ruga destroyed the whole thing. What is Ruga? Ruga was a good concept, but then the way and manner it was brought at that time in the implementation created a political confusion all over the country. All over the country for a concept like this. Now we have Ministry for Livestock. Let nobody go and say it is Christian, it is Muslim, it is this. And then encourage those who are going to implement it, and we will find a lasting solution to the farmers' headsmen problem that we have in Nigeria.
Distinguished Senator, thank you. And, when we talk about livestock industry and reforms, we seem to be focusing primarily on, the header farmer clashes, which is understandable. I mean, we all understand the reason why. But there are very critical issues that are also involved and need to be reformed. And that's why I'll ask you, apart from the crisis between the farmers and the herders, what are the other issues that would require attention that a new ministry, or in the alternative, in the words of Mr. President, an expansion of the Department of Livestock Production would resolve?
Well, I think the ministry should do a lot of sensitization. You remember I mentioned it. Now, people, Nigerians, anything you mention about livestock, they will think that it's all about cows. It's not about cows. It's all, like Professor mentioned, it's all about domestic industry, the domestic industry, and also the value chain, the value chain. For instance, I tried to do that in my state, and I told them, it took me almost 6 months to explain to people that what we are doing is not all about farmers' headsmen. It's about encouraging people to go into the livestock industry, which is which will now take a lot of our youth off on the street. We have a lot of land in some of the northern parts that are wasted. Now, because we are not using those portions, you see a lot of criminals will use it, will come to occupy that place and turn it into an enclave for banditry. Now, we had 95,000 hectares of land wasted in one local government. I quickly said, why are we wasting it? Now let us move this and do an example, a pilot scheme. I saw it, Nasarawa is doing it, Adamawa is doing it, Gombe is doing it. About 10 or 12 states were already doing it in the north. Now, if you have this concept and you demonstrate it with livestock industry, people will key into it. I have seen a lot of big men, even from the south, saying that if it is going, all we are avoiding is this stigmatization, or what people say, that anytime you talk about livestock industry, you are talking about one tribe. That is like you are trying to paint a tribe wrong. But I don't want to do that. But when you talk about this, let us take time. Like there's a ministry now, we must take that time. We must pay, that is federal government must pay that good attention. When I say good attention, it means that there must be adequate funding. Let them fund it and see. People will shift from all other industries and move into the livestock industry. For me, that has been my ambition, and a lot of us in the Senate or National Assembly, I see people talking about keeping 100 cows. I see people talking about sheep, talking about poultry, and all those things. So that kind of sensitization, the ministry will now demonstrate and also concentrate, rather than taking it and still concentrating in the Ministry of Agriculture, where you see a lot of bureaucracy, and when there is a good concept, it turns into a different matter. So today, Mr. President has assembled a good chunk of resource persons in that ministry I've seen. Now, if they get there and they fail, then there's no more hope for this country in respect to addressing these issues again. So we need to take steps, bring out the program, print it out, take it to the lowest person, down to the grassroots. Let them understand what we are doing, and then we move in and address this issue. So by the time we address these issues, it will also avoid us this farmers' herdsmen conflict.
Indeed, Senator Simon Lalong, you said there will be no hope. There is hope. This is the renewed hope agenda era, and I believe Nigerians have hope. Let's bring in other guests, because we'll be coming back to you to talk about the challenges you faced as governor of Plateau State while you were talking about the Ruga settlement. Let's bring in Aminu Murtala Nyako. He's the managing director and chief executive officer, Sebore. Did I get it all right? Yes. International Farms. You know, I've been following you, I've been watching you. It's good to see somebody so young, interested in business, although you were born into it, I believe. Yes, and let's have your take on this new ministry for livestock and the potential of this new ministry when it takes off, because it's a multi-trillion-dollar business. And I remember in the 70s, we were even exporting rams to Saudi Arabia from Kano. You know, then that I was doing that, and all of a sudden it just died because of the conflicts and the fights between herders and farmers. Let's have your take on the potential that this ministry would bring by changing the dynamics in the economy of this country.
Well, thank you so much for having me here. As you can see, I'm a very young Nigerian. I'm in the agribusiness space, yes. And I think it is highly commendable what President Asiwaju has done in terms of establishing the Ministry of Livestock Development. But I will take it from a very different angle. We need to understand that Nigerians right now are facing possibly one of the worst food scarcity and food availability that we've ever experienced. And within that, we've been experiencing a lot of inflation, which has been putting a pinch on every single Nigerian across all demographics. When you look at it within this realm, you actually have to think and say, how do you place Nigeria in terms of a forward-thinking nation to address food security? You know, when you're thinking of national security, food security is actually paramount, because everyone knows an angry man, hungry man, angry man. So within this context, how I'm looking at it as a young Nigerian is, look, Nigeria currently has to pivot away from oil as its primary driver of growth, because we know the challenges that are facing the oil market, and oil demand has peaked. We know the prices of oil are coming down. We know that we are over leveraged in terms of our oil, and previous administrations, current administration, are saying that we need to go into non-oil export, non-oil production, and agriculture is the baseline for that. If you look at it within that context, you now need to appreciate that even globally, not only Nigerians are facing inflation, but Western societies are facing climate challenges. They are cultivating less land. They are cultivating, there's a boom of population. We know what is happening in Africa. Tunisia, that was initially providing livestock resources. Sudan was providing a lot of livestock resources. Chad was providing. All these places, Burkina Faso, Niger, all these places have actually delinked because of all the challenges that are being faced. So we have the Middle East having a very high demand. You just alluded to it now, with Andata exporting there before from Nigeria. But all these other places are actually in a state of conflict or turmoil. So the food systems have broken down. And we know what's happening with the Egypt in terms of the Suez Canal, with the Houthis blocking trade, and why trade routes are becoming very expensive. If you look at it within the global context, Nigeria is actually prime because we're in the Gulf of Guinea. Yes. We actually have access to ports. We can actually export into America, Europe, enter the Mediterranean Sea, and push our actual agro resources in that direction. I want to kind of open the minds of Nigerians that, you know, we always look within. This entire conversation has been watered down to farmer header. It's not, for me, as a young Nigerian, it's not about farmer header. I will explain that as we go along. It's not about farmer header. It is that if you're looking at agric to be the premier driver of growth in Nigeria now, you need to look at agric in two ways. You have crop production and you have livestock. And over the last 2-3 decades, we have lumped it as agriculture, and the focus of the ministry has always been on crop. Most people don't realize, if I ask now, what is the population, what is the ruminant population of livestock in Nigeria?
We have no
Everybody,
data.
everybody always says, oh, Nigeria is 220 million people. Do you know that we almost have 60% of that in livestock, in cows, sheep, horses, ram, poultry, and there's no database. We cannot plan for it. We cannot leverage it. We cannot convert it into value. These things, when you want to now start to make agriculture what it should be, you need to now understand that all these ruminant animals, yes, cattle right now has the focus because of the header crisis, but how won't you have header crisis when you have 220 million Nigerians and 160 million livestock roaming around interstate, going into communities and growing? You would, if you're not able to have a government body that can sit down, organize, track, integrate, develop, and plan, you will have chaos that moves into decades. And me as a young Nigerian, you people keep saying, the youth are the future, the youth are the future. The future that is coming forth is chaotic. And I commend President Asiwaju extremely for taking this initiative. For me, this is a very proactive initiative. That look, if we are going to say agriculture is going to be the premier driver of growth, then we're going to have a Ministry of Agriculture that will focus on crop. Crop is everything you know, fruits, vegetables, tree crops, cash crops. It's already a big thing. When you think of livestock, you're now going to be thinking about foraging, you're going to be thinking about veterinary doctors, AI, you're going to be thinking about breed improvement, meat, milk.
So much.
It's a lot.
Yeah, so much. But just before I take the conversation away from you and bring in Dr. Saleh Momale, I just want to ask, from my curiosity, you are the director and CEO of Sebore?
Yes.
Sebore International Farms. What do you do?
So,
what aspect of farming are you
I'm a dairy farmer. I'm a dairy farmer. I tell people I'm an economist first and a dairy farmer second. 3 years ago, we built the largest fresh dairy processing plant in Nigeria, powered by solar and batteries. We've integrated about 18,000 farmers right now in the Northeast. We collect milk from Chibok, Southern Borno, Biu, through Adama, all the way to Taraba, Gashaka, Guroje,
Where are you based?
We're in Adama State. So we collect milk daily.
So you collect milk from Chibok?
We collect milk daily.
Daily.
We bring it to we bring it to our facility and we process it into yogurt, butter, cheese, ice cream.
So indeed, it is for people like you that this initiative comes very, very handy.
And timely too.
And again, it is for people like you that the issue of farmer header crisis need to be tackled. And that's why I'm going to take my next question to Dr. Saleh Momale. And it's about regulating and organizing this livestock industry such that, it has a focus. And when you talk about regulating and organizing it, it will mean managing the pasture and, of course, finding a way of harmonizing grazing rights or grazing land and all that. What, from your point of view, what would be the first step in developing both, grazing rights and, of course, maybe ranching?
Thank you. I wish to join my colleagues in commending Mr. President for taking up this bold initiative. I think it is all very clear that this sector needs to be reformed. This sector needs to be taught. A lot of stakeholders need to be on board. And Nigerian citizens need to have a more clearer understanding of what the livestock industry means in terms of contribution to national development. I think my colleagues have earlier explained that in much more details. For every production system, there are various components, there are various requirements, and there are different stakeholders that are involved. And the processes of the production system involves different stages. And most of the focus in the popular discourse is as if when we are speaking, it's just about getting land for cattle to graze. But beyond land for cattle to graze, there are a lot of other opportunities along the entire value chain for all category of Nigerians. And I think this is very important. So strategically speaking, it's a traditionally based production system if you come to the ruminant livestock. And in ruminant livestock, we are talking about cattle, sheep, and goats, principally in Nigeria, because we have fewer camels, unlike many other Sahelian countries. If you pick the three major animals, apart from poultry and other small ruminants and piggeries, you find that cattle, sheep, and goats are the major ruminant population. Who are the owners of this ruminant population, and how are these ruminant populations managed? If you take sheep, for example, sheep is a common household animal that is maintained by smallholder producers in both the urban and rural areas by all ethnic groups across the country, but most particularly in northern Nigeria. If you take goats, goats is also an animal that is managed by smallholder producers, the rural, by all Nigerians across the country, the northwest, the north, the south, and the southwest. So I maintain in the house. Yeah. So they are very important and critical livestock for the sustenance of the rural women economy, for the sustenance of smallholder producers. Then coming to cattle, cattle are more dominant in northern Nigeria, and they are livestock that are predominantly owned by the herders, managed under, peasant production systems with huge potentials for improvement. So how have this system fared, and how has it been managed, and why is it driving some of these conflicts? Now, wherever I speak, I always want to draw attention that the conflicts, although very devastating as it is not everywhere. It's most prominent in areas where the management of intercommunity relations, where the management of land resources have been altered by either population growth or by climate change or by the introduction of ethnic, religious, and other political considerations into the production system. So if we remove politics, we remove ethnicity, we remove all these negative considerations that negate the development of the sector, you find out that the cattle resources are a resources of the communities wherever they exist. So talking about that, we will, I think, focusing on developing integrated crop livestock systems for smallholder producers that promotes beneficial crop livestock exchanges between crop farmers and livestock producers, that integrate animal manpower into agriculture, as we are increasingly seeing, the use of work bulls to plow agricultural fields, the use of animals to support some of the key agricultural practices, the fertilization of our degraded soils using organic manure we derive from animals, the conversion of animal crop byproducts into viable and important livestock feeds that will increase productivity. We will begin to see increased livestock productivity, increased crop productivity for crop farmers, for higher productivity for animal producers, higher productivity and incomes for the varied stakeholders along the entire value chains. We will then begin to see increased private sector investment. We'll begin to see increased investment by rural producers themselves in improved animal production systems. And this will gradually lead us to the introduction of integrated farms that we are seeing by both large-scale investors, small-scale investors, and possibly international investors that will place Nigeria in a strategic position to contribute not only to the food security of its own citizens, but to the food security of the entire West African sub-region, and open up our potentials for the export economy to other countries. Importantly, most of our animal resources are still very useful and very, let me say, indigenous species that have very high productive capacities and which are organic. So implying that many of these biotic engineering that has taken place for some of the animal species in other climes. And people who are looking for these organic foods will rush to countries like Nigeria and other West African countries for organic products from animal resources. And these are huge opportunities that we will exploit. And I think this is the vision of Mr. President, and the committee and the ministry have an enormous task, just like His Excellency, distinguished Senator Long explained, to modernize Nigerians.
Dr. Momole, you know, you've raised a lot of pertinent questions, and as Executive Vice Chairman, Peace Committee in Kaduna State, this is the first time a policy like this, a move like this, is appreciated across board by all. And I'm going to quote something that the Mieti Allah said. You know, they said, we as an association had for years been agitating tooth and nail to actualize the creation of a stand-alone ministry to modernize livestock production system, you know, in line with global best practices. Nigeria wants to move beyond this country, because when we see other countries like the Netherlands, UK, the US making so much tremendous amount of money from livestock agriculture in their country and contributing immensely to the economy, where do you think this ministry will take Nigeria, you know, traject it, you know, on the world map?
I expect to see in the forthcoming years a robust ruminant livestock production strategy that will see our rural women who are managing small poultry, who are managing goats, who are managing sheep, being able not only to make marginal income, but to make enormous resources that will contribute to family well-being, that will contribute to income, improve life, improve livelihoods, improve nutrition for our young children, that will be able to provide quality education for our own children across the entire country. I would love to see a robust strategy that will place our peasant herder communities to now begin to manage their animals within their homesteads, rather than, you know, aggregating animals into big herds that are undernourished, that produce very minimal milk. I would want to see every herder woman owning her own animals within the backyard of their own settlement, being able to grow the pasture, being able to key into the forage production mechanisms and feed those animals to produce milk that is sufficient to feed our family, sufficient for the commercial market, and sufficient to make Nigeria to become non-dependent on the import of dairy products. I would want to see this ministry initiating efforts and engaging Nigerians so that we have a common front for the development of this country in a unified, a coordinated, and in a peaceful and harmonious manner. These are the challenges before us, and the ministry need to work with those of crop production, create integrated communities that see themselves as partners in the development of their own communities as well as the nation at large.
All right, thank you, Dr. Momale. Thank you very much for the issues that you have raised. Very, very fundamental issues indeed. But again, we know that livestock farmers, cattle, cow, goat, sheep, you know, camel, whatever, will require a place, you know, to farm, a piece of land to farm. Before even international farmers like Malam Aminu Nyako here, you know, can even access them. For instance, if they have a particular location, Malam Aminu Nyako here would not have to go all the way to Chibok, you know, to get his you know, his value chain. I mean, the raw materials for his products. If he's based in Abuja, for instance, he knows he can easily go, you know, access those facilities here in Abuja and all that. So the issue of, again, land is a very touching issue when it comes to, you know, livestock. I mean, that is the fundamental problem. You ask anybody, the question now will be, where would they get the land? How would they get the land? And you yourself, you know, must have seen from the issue of Ruga. Even when Ruga came up, it was all about land acquisition. When the National Livestock Transformation Plan came up, it was the same thing. Even when before Ruga, there was one other initiative that came up, and it died, and it didn't work out. So I'm just wondering, what kind of policy under the new ministry, do we expect to be able to resolve the issue of land acquisition? And I don't know. I wanted to Senator Lalong, but Professor Olorunfemi Jagede, please still hold on, because you are a professor of veterinary. We will come back to you. Let's distinguished Senator Lalong, give us an idea. I mean, he was an executive, governor of a state. What kind of policy, do you think will be necessary, to resolve the issue of, land rights and land acquisition?
Clear. I think the governors are very key. The governors of the states are very key on this issue, because sometimes we play politics with a policy like this. I think the idea of bringing this was, first of all, to find, as you move in, this is a reform. You must get alternative. We're talking about alternative. Somebody was into poultry. You tell him that, no, I'm going to move you to another thing. He will rely on the government to provide an alternative. And that kind of alternative is something that is possible. I say it's possible because I mentioned Plateau, for instance. We had a very big farmland, which was sold to Nyako, Governor Nyako. Thank God his son is here. For a very long time, it became a problem in Plateau State. Every person that was contesting for governor, they will mention that. It's only when you buy that back that farm. I was very, very happy. Nyako, his father called me and said, I'm giving you back this land. I bought that piece of land. That land is still in Plateau State. It's still one of the biggest farms that we had. Nyako offered to me, we bought it back, and it is there lying fallow. We had the biggest, like I said, in Kanam and so many places. And I asked the people, if you say you don't want to use it, when are you going to use it? Let us develop this. And so it is when you start developing this, bringing the ideas like Mumale said. I'm sure an average Fulani man is tired of moving about with malnourished cows. He would not want to be moving about. He wants to settle in one place. And the only thing that we can settle some of it is that we let us move back to the state governors. Where do we have this land? Any part of this land that you have, please offer. It is not that the government will confiscate it, because that was one of my challenge with the law. With due respect to the ranching law that was brought before the National Assembly to set up a commission, I'm sure it will be overtaken by events with this concept that Mr. President has brought. That would have been very, very difficult to say you have a commission and the commission will start talking about how to acquire land in a state. But in this concept that Mr. President is bringing, it is now a ministry. Let the ministry sit with all the governors. They are in charge. It's not federal government. Where are those unoccupied land? What are they doing? If it is meaningful, if for each state, there must be a concept to develop that, so that everything, this livestock industry will flourish in that kind of thing. Some states are already having dairy farms. Plateau State had a dairy farm for a long time. Plateau was opportune to have one of the biggest veterinary institutions in West Africa. The Von Vet, why was it established? It was established for livestock business, livestock industry. But we left it wasted. We had a lot of veterinaries everywhere, to a point where we even ran away from training veterinary doctors, which was a very, very good concept by our forefathers, that we bring them up. People don't even want to read veterinary medicine again, because they will tell you, and I have an example. At a point, I took them, I said, where are veterinary doctors? I showed them a lot of them trained, but no work to do. They don't have work to do. So if we bring them together, and then all of them, and we start on this concept, I tell you that that will be an alternative. So the issue of domesticating livestock industries, like he said, will not be something of shame, of conflict again. All of us will go and agree that yes, ranching is the best way, because as Momale said, all other animals are domesticated. They are stayed in one place. But why can't we take one and find a way, an alternative, sit down with the stakeholders and find a way of keeping them in one place? Because if you get to Plateau, that 95, about 95% hectares that we have is being developed in Wase. If you want to do that business, there's no business that you cannot do on livestock. And as you do it there, if you have behind your backyard to do it, that concept will also extend to your backyard. The protection will be there, the attention will be there from the veterinary doctors, and like Yako, that will be revenue for the state and also address many of the insecurities that we have. And I say that because we have a lot of resource persons. And when I said, if this one fails, as a DG of the Renewed Hope campaign, I know that it will not fail when we have resource persons like this. Yes. So let us look at
Senator, along, we're all aware of your drive, to ensure that this I'm sure you must have been part of those people who said we need this ministry to exist in Nigeria, and talking about the millions of veterinary doctors who have been graduating from universities across the country. Let's bring in Dr. Loro Femi Jegede. He's the faculty of veterinary medicine. What does it mean to you? The immense opportunity in employment across the value chain. What does it mean? Are you excited about this?
Much more than excited. We are more than excited. But let me also join my other colleagues in commending and appreciating Mr. President for this bold move in creating this ministry. I think he has actually taken the bull by the horn. And for us in the veterinary profession, I think it's a dream come true. We had actually been looking forward to a time like this where a ministry be created for livestock. And because of course the opportunities are endless for us, it then mean that it will strengthen the capacity for disease surveillance and control in the country. And not just the animal, it will also help in coordinating animal, human, and environmental diseases, which we call One Health. This One Health will now be strengthened. And then, of course, we know you can't talk about livestock without health, health aspect coming in. So it then means that even the institutions that are, that are saddled with that are saddled with working to develop preventive ways that you can have in animals to make them, be more healthy. They will also be more strengthened. And policies on livestock and livestock disease will also become, strengthened. But above all, I want to say that veterinarians that are out there that are graduating will now look forward to, yes, I'll graduate and I'm looking forward to getting myself employed, either in the private, because there will soon be private sector coming into it massively to establish farms. And when they establish farms, of course, they need to employ veterinarians, in such farms. Even government, even the ministry itself, you employ veterinarians much more. And also, I want to also say that for such a ministry that is created by Mr. President, the interplay or the disease outbreaks will better be managed by such ministry, because that is what you are created for now. We will not wait until when disease spread. For example, recently we had an outbreak of anthrax that we had not too long ago in the country. Now, when such is on, it's almost like, quick. It will be curtailed before it even spreads to any other place that we have. So a ministry like this for animal development is going to really enhance veterinary, profession of veterinary practice in this country. And many more people will now be encouraged to go in to read veterinary medicine, because they will now be confident that when I graduate, there is hope for me that, yes, I will get job. It will not be a case where, because, some people didn't plan to read it, but somehow, they find themselves they are reading. And because of that, when they even graduate, the enthusiasm will not be there. But now, you will now find people, apply for it, read it, And then when they graduate, the enthusiasm will be there, not only to even work under anybody, but also be looking forward to, establishing their own other veterinary clinics in order to reach out to service these private ranches or farms that are created, to reach out to them to help into production. And I think in the overall, it will now enable the veterinary profession to also contribute its quota to the animal, GDP, of the agricultural sector of this nation. And that will quite, improve the country's agricultural or animal protein intake. And also, even in the exportation of, we're talking about it opening the borders for exporting our livestock product. But if you're exporting and there is no proper, check, veterinary check, then it will be rejected. But now, if they know that, yes, you have qualified veterinarians who are there working in such farms or in such establishment to export it, then they are meant to be at peace that, yes, any animal coming from them, we are sure that it has gone through the quality control in terms of health check that it should. So I think for us in the veterinary profession, it is honestly a dream come true for us, and we are quite excited about it, and we can't wait for the ministry to, take off fully so that we can also come in and contribute our own quota.
Including your students too?
Oh yes.
Just before we take a break, I'm wondering, what is it really that excites you? Is it the creation of the ministry or the reforms, the holistic reforms in that sector? I'm just, because you're talking about the ministry, oh yes, the ministry will provide us with the Ministry of Agriculture is already in existence. There's a department there that is supposed to, address the issue of livestock.
Yes.
So for veterinaries, what is it specifically and relatably that excites you, that now makes you, or will now make you more involved, more active?
Okay, now, you have, I'll just give this analogy. You have the man that have, say, maybe 2 wives, for example. You have 2 wives competing for attention of that same man. But now, you have now been assisted, you have only 1 husband. And you should know that all that attention you will get. What I'm trying to say is that the ministry, the health, is a department under the Ministry of Agriculture as it is now. And there are several other departments in that ministry. But now, when we have, with creation of this Ministry of Livestock Development, then the issue of, veterinarian going into full-fledged, whatever problem will be hindering them, they are not to, go into their full potential, will no longer be there. We will all now come out full potential, and because we know, yes, we have a ministry that, yes, now, looks at us as a professional and what we should be, and our potential will all be there. So I'm saying it that by the time this ministry go full-fledged, as it has been, pronounced and created, then veterinarians, I think the sky is the beginning for us.
It's a stepping stone, actually.
So this is a cover. It's a cover for veterinary doctors.
Yes.
So you are no longer,
a department now under the
Ministry
whole
of
Ministry of Agriculture control.
You are now a full husband.
Yeah, we are a full wife, I should say, that has a husband to give us attention.
Yes. Thank you. We'll be taking a break, and we'll be discussing about the challenges and solutions and the reference terms of this ministry. We'll be right back.
Federal government of Nigeria warns vandals of national assets, electricity transmission towers, cables and other facilities to desist from this act of sabotage. Vandalism is a serious crime punishable under the law. Vandalizing electrical equipment will affect millions of Nigerians, including your loved ones. Remember that national assets belong to all of us, hence the need to protect them. Report all cases of suspicious movement around electrical facilities to security agencies. When you see something, say something. This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation in collaboration with the National Counter-Terrorism Center, NCTC, Office of the National Security Advisor.
Did you know that a quarter of the world's deaths from malaria is in Nigeria? And the reason being a mosquito that spreads malaria, a disease that puts everyone's life in distress. We believe that protection and prevention is the best cure in the fight to end malaria. Mortein insecticide with its improved formulation kills 100% mosquitoes that spread malaria. So, spread the message of how we can fight to end malaria with Mortein. Mortein, our #1 choice.
The counsel of our fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Euro 2024, live on Sporty TV.
You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria, and we have our guest still seated here in the studio. I'm coming to you, Professor Kuta. One important aspect of this new ministry, the terms of reference of the committee and all that, is the cattle routes. Existed before, the passage for cattle to pass from countries coming into Nigeria and beyond Nigeria. Are we going to still map it out again, or will the government will just use the existing ones that were there before? Because if these cattle routes exist, we won't be having all these farmer header crashes, don't you think?
Well, thank you very much. I think during the inauguration, Mr. President made it clear that it will be statewide implementation, and that is why the terms of reference is very robust, 16 items on the menu. And part of it is that engagement with the subnationals, especially the state governors. And I was not surprised when the chairman of Nigerian Governors Forum and the governor of Kwara State, Alaji Abdraman Abrazak, was there, and the chairman of the Progressive Governors, Governor Hope Uzodinma, was also in attendance. And in the engagement that ensued between the chairman of the committee, Professor Tairo Jega, and Governor Brazak, you know, there was this plan to have a conversation with the 36 governors at a point, so that all these issues you are talking about will be addressed, so that we have understanding, so that you don't prescribe, you look for, you know, bottom-up approach to addressing some of the issues. They were clearly stated. And also there is a terms of reference that deals with the ECOWAS protocol in terms of transhumance and the movement across borders. So all these edicts also be looked at, and I was happy the Mr. President directed the Attorney General of the Federation, who was also in attendance, to look at some of those issues if the committee require any review of the laws in terms of all this. So I think the most important thing is that the terms of reference is so robust and so expansive that covers every aspect that would be the game changer in terms of how the issue of livestock development across different species is concerned. So I believe the issues that you are raising are just part of the, you know, menu of the issue that the committee will look at and fast-track implementation in a way that it will minimize suspicion, conflict, and interest that may be of adverse this to the state or to the federation or to the local government, as it may be.
Okay, let me also bring in Murtala Nyaku to the conversation. And inaugurating the implementation committee yesterday, Mr. President, you know, mentioned, you know, key perceived, you know, would be challenges, and he talked about legal issues. He talked about budgeting and funding. He also talked about innovation and, you know, technology. And you have also brought up the issue of data, which is absolutely lacking at the moment. And also in his speech, the recommendation of the committee was to either create a full-fledged ministry of livestock and development, or in the alternative, in the words of Mr. President, expand the Department of Livestock Production. Now, if you consider all of the encumbrances involved, what would be your advice? Would it be to go ahead and establish the ministry? Will the establishment of a ministry resolve all the issues, in the livestock sector? Or would it be more convenient, given the need for funding and other issues, to just expand that department?
Well, thank you very much. But as you know, the words of Mr. President is sacrosanct, and he has taken, in his own wisdom.
He said, he gave, yes, because I think he was, making reference to the recommendation of the committee. He said it would be good to create, a centric ministry, or in the alternative, if you read the report properly, expand the Department of Production Services.
So I would tell you in this way: however route you go, the end state, the vision is still the same, which is you need to unlock the livestock potential of Nigeria for any kind of meaningful growth to be contributed to GDP and help our food security issue. In terms of the apparatuses of government that you choose to do, that is left for them. I'm a private sector person that has, in my own right, unlocked the latent potential in Adamawa State and the Northeast. I want to give you a bit of context so that you kind of understand what this value proposition is. There is livestock potential that has not been touched at all in the last 40 years. What we've been doing is private sector individuals have been, in the plainest of words, killing cattle, killing ram to eat. If you know one today in Nigeria that has eaten a piece of meat in their pot, can tell you what cow that came from. You not being able to detect what cow it was, what is its pedigree, where was it slaughtered, when was it slaughtered, already makes that piece of meat ineligible for export. For you to be able to say you want to have agriculture and your livestock become the premier driver of growth, there are things that need to be upgraded at national and international scale that cannot be done by a singular department. It has to be a consciousness that is put together, that is able to track, organize, integrate, vision, plan, and execute it at such a level that it can unlock value for the entire Nigeria. What we've done in our state, we mentioned things about land allocation and some of these things. Let me tell you, Nigeria already sits on resources, and I say a lot of times, the resources confuses us, and that is why we're unable to unlock it, because we're so blessed with bounty. Our mentality has now become one of disorganization. What we did is the Northeast, now Nigeria has challenges of insecurity everywhere, but you do realize that the Northeast has had those challenges over a decade, since the Boko Haram era in earlier times. So private investment never went there. And what I tell our farmers all the time is, look, there is no messiah coming to save you. You have to look at what you currently have, which is your cattle, and how then do you convert that cattle into wealth. And what we decided to do is, look, everyone that gives us milk, as at this morning, we've integrated them, we educated them, we provided them NIN, BVN, phone, mobile wallet. Is completely cashless program. We test the milk. I can tell you this individual farmer in Kaurami or this individual farmer in Groje brought this amount of liters, and this is the quality of the milk from his cattle. We know their GPS locations of each individual person, the tracking systems that we're saying. I'm not a technology person. These technologies are currently available in Nigeria by NIDA, by the CBN, by the banking system. We've just not integrated it and organized it at scale to be able to unlock value. And just to give you a bit of last context, here is the individual farmer that has 150 cows is probably sitting on 75 million naira. And the cash flow that I generated from 10 cows is 180,000 naira a month. What I'm trying to tell you is that I'm only talking about dairy. If you think about meat sector, a cow today...
Sorry,
yes.
I agree with what you're saying. I mean, there's no doubt about the value, of all you're saying. I'm just looking at the need for the apparatus, for the platform, to organize and integrate so we achieve it. And I want to ask Professor Kutta, if you look at now, at the last count, I know we have more than 40-something ministries. And if you look at all the ministries, for instance, let's look at even the Ministry of Agriculture. At the moment, you know what the prices of food, foodstuff, are in the market. The federal government has had to come in to say, look, this, remove duties and tariffs. There's a whole ministry. Yet we are having issues. Are we not going the same route by creating another ministry, for livestock? Is it not just when we are still talking about, bloated, cost of governance and all that, and we are still looking for funds?
I think you are getting it wrong, because we are talking about economic of scale. If you invest 10 naira, and the probability of getting 100 naira is possible, are you going to be afraid of investing 10 naira just because you don't want to, so we have to maximize our potential. If you listen to Aminu very well, he has demonstrated that it is possible. In Niger State, I serve as secretary to government, and under my watch, my boss created Ministry of Livestock Development in 2008, 2007.
It is
so
possible
this is not even now at the subnational.
It is possible if you develop the infrastructures. If you develop the infrastructures, you train. There are other ways of achieving.
Yes, as part of the mandate of Mr. President, is to provide the infrastructure that will be needed to drive the entire livestock development. So if we have to talk about right now as we're talking, the 26-man committee have gone into subcommittees, 5 subcommittees. Aminu is leading the business model because he has the capacity to drive, he has experience, both local and international, to leverage on. And so many experts in the team. The former deputy governor of Imo State, Professor Placid Njoku, a professor of animal science, is leading another subcommittee to champion the issue of settlement and all the issues that have to do with the terms of about 5 of them that are so robust, and they are already working. So about others like that too. So I am very confident that what this committee will come up with, Nigerians will be very proud, and at the end of the day, all the doubts, all the insinuations will be put to shame. Because there are a lot of doubting Thomases. In Nigeria, it's the only country you have that you have a good thing. You use your mouth to kill it or to demarcate it, while other smaller people are advancing frontiers. In fact, Knife for Benin, when it was established for the entire West Africa to provide, seedlings for oil palm. Malaysia came for exchange program, went with our seedlings to expand frontiers, advance it, and look at what Malaysia has done with oil palm today. So today, we are not going to wait for anybody to destroy our potentials. NAPRID in Zaria has the potential. They established the Shika Brown, that you can bear me witness, that is laying the best quality eggs in Nigeria today. Yeah. So this committee, part of its recommendation, is going to advance research and development. Good enough. Mr. President looked and said, look, with all these people here, the solution is here. No, I am a humble just secretary. So what I'm saying is that Mr. President has not made any mistake. With Professor Tahiru Jega, one professor called me from UI and said, you have a chairman who is an icon of integrity.
Yes.
You will not fail. We are looking forward to positive outcomes. So from me today and my colleagues, we can beat our chest that will not fail Mr. President, will not fail Nigerians.
Indeed, you
This
not
is
fail.
our hope.
Yes.
And not only renewed hope, but a sustainable hope for Nigeria livestock sector.
Professor Kuta, I like your spirit, actually.
Thank you.
Now, let's bring in Dr. Momole into this conversation. There is no perfect plan in anything, and we know there are challenges of climate change, insecurity, and all that. Okay, we hear that it's not that. Let me throw the question to Senator Lalong there. If you can hear me, there are issues, challenges that would maybe challenge this new ministry, and that is climate change. We have insecurity and all that. Let's talk about the challenges and how we can profile solutions to it.
Thank you very much, Juma. I will say that I was following the arguments because the questions you asked, why industry? I will say that, yes, this issue of livestock has posed as a very serious security challenge now to the country. Why were we unbundling NNPC? It was because of the importance of what? Unbundling NNPC. To us today, if there is a need to move from Ministry of Agriculture, I know I've been in government, I was a governor, to a separate ministry if you want to give attention to the livestock business. We must, for me, there's no need talking about the expansion or scope, the scope. I know what obtains there. What we'll do is let us try a different approach. We cannot be using the same approach to accept, to get on to the same result. So the ministry is necessary. Let us get the ministry. Let us provide the funding for them to do a different thing so that we can achieve a different a different result. Livestock is very important in terms of the revenue, in terms of the GDP, and also in terms of employment. I will say employment. Today we are talking about taking many of our youths off the street. It's not only about veterinary doctors, because it's about engagement. By the time we do engagement and empowerment, a lot of our youth will go into it. People will move in it. People will not be talking about petrol again or the oil industry. That will be an oil industry. Those of us in the north, that is our oil industry. Why are we focused on solid minerals today? It's because of we are diversification from petrol. So if we have to move away from petrol, the idea of these items are very, very important. We require a full-fledged ministry to take about, like Professor Kuta said, I know that there are a lot of components of this report, a lot of components. You really want to do that because we need it now. We need it now to address the insecurity. We need it now for business. We need it for the economic advantage for not only the country, but also for the subnationals, for the state. And that is why I said it is very important in the implementation to take the governors along. I know what it will happen. To take the governors along. Once you take the governors, by the governors I mean the states who are now having the control over land, because the business of government is to provide enabling environment. You are not saying that it is government that will do it, but when you provide that enabling environment for stakeholders to come in, like the Nyakos, that everybody, you would have taken away many of these problems. And so let the ministry be focused on providing the enabling environment, and you see how many people that will be engaged in the livestock business, just like people are moving also into agriculture. So it is when you get there that you solve the challenges you are talking about. You will solve the problem of insecurity. You will solve the problem of
okay, distinguished senator. In just few seconds, if you may, I know that at the subnational government, the state executives may also have their priorities. You know, where they direct their funding. Mr. President had directed, of course, the Minister of Budget and National Planning, of course, to make the budget and funding available, and you also have said let us fund it. But my question is, where do we get the money from? What would be the sources? At the moment, our production capacity is very low. You and I know that we are unable to even meet our benchmark production capacity. The strength of the naira is low against the dollar. Our reserves, of course, we know what the state is. So I'm wondering, where will the source of the funding be, come from?
Well, that question should have gone to Professor Kuta. But then let me tell you that when something is important as this, by the time you are talking of unbundling, you would also have been thinking about the source of funding. By the time government is going to provide, like I said, enabling environment. When you provide an enabling environment, funds will start coming in. Funds will, even from international, even from foreign donations here and there, because the business of livestock is not only for Nigerians. People who come from different places. For me, I am not afraid of the success of this ministry, but let it be that there is integrity, like I said, being provided in terms of the leadership and the management, and funding will not be a problem. I'm a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. If you ask me, by the time it comes to the Senate, we're going to give it a very big priority. So when you're talking of funding, don't be afraid. The ministry will not be afraid, because this is an area that requires a lot of attention. So I am not a governor now, and I'm a senator. I know that I will be speaking for my Senate president.
I want to distinguish Senator. There he directed the commission, Minister for Planning, to find a subhead for it immediately, and the Minister of Finance to go and address the funding issue. So we're not afraid, because Mr. President has pronounced it's a proclamation, and I'm very confident that it has come to stay. And so all the Towding Thomases should go and think about another thing. On the very positive note, let us use this opportunity to commend NTA for leading the vanguard in terms of positive sensitization. We all call on other media to take it easy and allow this thing to work. They are doing their job, but we should be patriotic, just as Mr. President said, let there be no stain on our flag.
Okay.
Let
Indeed,
us
there will be no stain.
Yeah, so that is
thinking.
a positive move, and I commend NTA and all your actors.
Well, that's why NTA is here. We're here to create awareness on any policy that is being pushed out by government, so that people understand it better. Let's bring in the Professor Jegede into the conversation. And can you tell us, what incentive should be provided, to people who want to go into livestock agri and to take advantage of this initiative? In just 30 seconds, because we have run out of time.
Just like the Senator said, the government should provide the infrastructures, should come in for people to be encouraged and interested into this. For example, I will tell you this. Now, these are people that roam about. They roam about because of lack of certain things. If they have those things where they are, they will sit there and they will not go. I tell you, you provide maybe source of water, you provide, they have source of grass there, they have also, marketing. They will not roam about to anywhere. They do all that because those infrastructures are not there. And this is what government should look at, making available. And once those things are there, I can bet you that this, issue of ranching or whatever will,
Okay, just your last also in your advice to the implementation committee, because they have the honors. Yeah. Oh, you are
a member.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay, so tell us what would be your first step now, in implementation, the line of implementation. 60 seconds.
So for me, I would just say this, is in an era of limited resources, you must prioritize. And you must prioritize your resources in places that you see growth. And I think the ministries, like you said previously, were created in an era of largesse. Now we're in an era of scarcity. We need to prioritize resources in areas that we know growth, and I know livestock can become...
What would be the first thing you're looking at now to implement?
Creating the enabling environment so that private sector funding can come and support livestock industry in Nigeria.
All right, Aminu Mutala Nyako, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Sebore International Farms, Adamawa State. Thank you very much. We're glad to have you. And my sister here is particularly excited to have met you. Let me also appreciate Professor Olarufemi Jegede, Faculty of Veterinary Medicine, University of Abuja, another very excited member. And here in the studio also, let me thank my very good friend, Professor Mohammed Yahya Kuta, Secretary, Presidential Livestock Reforms Implementation Committee. Thank you very much. And just before we go, distinguished Senator Simon Bako Lalong, and former Governor of Plateau State, who joined us via Zoom all the way from London. We thank you. Earlier on, we lost Dr. Saleh Momale.
He's back now.
But he's back just when we are signing off. Dr. Momale, we do apologize. You are a very good, resource person, and I'm sure that when we take up the ministry in full-fledged, we will be able to.
He's also a member of
the
committee.
Thank you, Dr. Saleh Momale, for your contribution, and of course, to you for being part of our conversation today on Good Morning Nigeria, as always, and getting high with us is a daily tonic. I am Claire Adelabu Abdul Razak. Bye-bye.
I'm Juma Yusuf. Do have a great day.